Wow, shots fire. Welcome, 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 welcome to Shady Talk Wednesday on a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday, I have live in studio with me my brother Jason Moody. Yes, yes. It is my pleasure to have him here with me on today. I wanted to have Jason here with me for many reasons. I have a lot of guests in here, but I wanted to get some spiritual confirmation and conversation going before the end of the year. So before we get started, let me read just a little bit of Jason's bio. Jason Moody, lifelong resident of Paterson, New Jersey, CEO of Moody Enterprise LLC, marketing and concept company, a husband, a pastor, and someone who advocates for our community. Give it up for Jason Moody. Hey Jay, how are you?
What's up, T? Good.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks for the invite.
Yes, thank you so much for coming here on this Tuesday. I normally have it on Wednesday, but because I'm um going to be doing something with comedy on Wednesday, I said, let me see if I could get Jason here on Tuesday. So, guys, I am airing today on Facebook, but you can watch the full episode tomorrow on YouTube. So, I wanted to get Jason here today because I don't know if you guys know, but Jason, he goes live. He does a morning prayer, a live prayer on Facebook, and I believe it's on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. See,
Yeah.
Monday I'm just waking up. Gotta give me the Wednesday to get there. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Yeah.
And sometime I catch your live prayer, and it was just something that kind of stuck to me with your last prayer that I seen that you was up there talking about, the one that I caught. And I remember hearing you saying, you set the temperature in your life. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, when I heard you say that, I was like, something just struck me because it's just like, that was so meaningful. And it was
Yeah.
like, I wanted to have you here to talk about that, about we as people setting the temperature of our lives. Can you
Yeah.
kind of give me like a little more of.
Sure. Sure. I do the best that I can to kind of articulate that thought at that moment, but
Okay.
it's the idea of a person kind of having the right attitude, right mindset, doing what they can do, and what they have control of in their life. A lot of times others set the temperature for others' lives, for our lives. When that happens, we're not in control. It's like everything that we do is dictated off of someone else. That's not healthy, and for so many different reasons. When we just totally lose ourselves to live for someone else. So it's kind of like a way to take your life back. Having the right mindset when you're facing adversities, having the right attitude, when you are navigating life and got some tension, got some resistance, or as we say in the church, trials and tribulations. I believe that, with the right mindset, when trials and tribulations happen, you can learn from those things rather than becoming a victim of those things. Because when you set that right temperature in your life, you begin to learn and get the lessons from them, and they become lessons versus, you being victimized or losses, as someone say. I don't lose, I learn. So setting that temperature is like, yo, here's the climate that I'm gonna be on. Meaning, like, here's the mindset I'm gonna have. Here's the attitude that I'm gonna have. Here's my heart. Here's my heart posture, and I'm not gonna let others or even situations deter me from, having that mindset that's, gonna help me win in life.
And it's so interesting that you say that because I feel like the world now is just in such a scramble that you really have to try to really tapping of really setting those temperatures, in your life. Like you said, the mindset and just, how you're gonna deal with things in life and just knowing how to get those things in order. I also wanted you here because I feel like you are a young pastor, and I just feel like, you know, now with so much going on, I don't know if it's because of the pandemic that came in, but it just seemed like we're praying harder. It's harder to pray. Um, Not that God isn't answering us,
Mm-hmm.
but it just seemed like, I don't know if it's because the churches are closed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some are still open.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting the word online. Um, now we're looking at a lot of young pastors. So it's just so much that has changed in this lifetime, to where as though I think some of the younger generation is just trying to figure out what is the temperature in their life.
Yeah.
How do they get that temperature? How do they stay with that mindset? How do their heart stay the same? How
Yeah.
do, and then it's like, so many people has lost people, you know, through this lifetime, recently, as far as, I don't want to blame it on the pandemic, but it does seem like it just was a major change since the pandemic. So I also wanted you to come here to try to help my younger people, including me, to figure out how do we stay completely tapped in with God, because it just seemed
Mm.
like our life is just going so fast. We thinking more, our brains are just rushing, and I know it's too because the jobs, people has lost jobs, people has lost family. Like I said, the way churches is set up now,
Yeah.
there's not too much in-house. So it's like, how do you think we can stay insane? Because somebody like you who grew up in the church, still heavy with God, you preach the word, you go live, you go out there in the world, you tell people, and for you to be young and a pastor, how do you tell the younger generation, us, how do we stay tapped in?
Man. So let's rewind a little bit
Okay.
to just the impact of the pandemic. I think what the pandemic did was expose what a lot of us was dealing with when the world was opened. Sometimes we don't
Mm.
know what we're dealing with until we stop and
Mm.
slow down. The pandemic said stop,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and everyone in the entire world
Mm-hmm.
was touched in some way, shape, or form. So
Mm-hmm.
during that time, because we were in solitude or confined, things started coming out that you wouldn't normally see because you're always moving.
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling some type of way. Hey, I'm gonna just jump in my car, go to the mall. I'm gonna jump in my car, take a ride down to the shore, or I'm gonna go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to kind of escape. So some things were hidden. We people didn't always see certain sides of us because we had these ways out. During the pandemic, we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have those ways out. It was
Mm.
like we're home.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you were feeling, it came out
Mm.
because where were you gonna go?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was closed. The malls were closed. You could only go food shopping at a certain time. Um, if you wasn't a person who was, exercising, then you were in the house. And so I believe that it exposed a lot. And then talking about the the amount of deaths that happened, the loss, it's called grief overload.
Mm.
We haven't lost for a lot of people. They haven't lost that many people in such a short period of time ever. Like it's
Right.
it's I mean, T, I asked my mom at the time and I'm like, hey mom, do you remember burying your peers like this?
Mm-hmm.
T, we go to funerals for our peers.
Yeah.
And this it's sometimes unfathomable, like, man, so and so just died. So and so I went to school with this person. And we're not even 50.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, a lot of things are happening that hadn't happened before, in a sense, for us to have a reference to say, all right, this happened before, this is how we deal with it. So we're dealing with it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's dealing with it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Pastors of this generation have never led in this type of crises before.
Right.
There's been recessions, there's been war, but there has not been a situation that stopped the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks of no productivity set us back 5 years.
Mm.
We're still right now in 2024 dealing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially
Mm-hmm.
with the impact of the pandemic.
Right.
So this is all new. And, when you talk about staying tapped in and with God and walking out faith, um, that has to be like a consistent decision that you make daily because of the emotions that we've been dealing with are unprecedented. And so if you're not careful, you can get lost in those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You can get lost in the situations that's happening and not just you can completely lose your mind in those moments. And so for me, my faith has been my go-to in these times of crisis, because I don't have all of the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I'm talking, whether it's my peers or I'm talking to the generation that's coming after me, I know sometimes we want absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutes are hard in this
Right.
climate,
Right.
and what happens is there's a song in the church, they say you understand it by and by, meaning you just got to keep living,
Right.
and things that don't make sense at one point may make sense later. And I'm saying may because sometimes things happen, still 15, 20 years later, and be like, I just don't know why that happened.
And I think that's the thing too. Like you said, we were confined, for some time. And it's like now, since the doors has opened back up from the pandemic, it's like we have to keep living. And it seemed like the living is going so fast. And just like you said, we've lost so many people,
Yeah.
our peers, we're now going to funerals of, people we went to school with, things like that. And it gets scary, it gets frustrated because it's like we're trying to figure out like you said, was people going through so much before the pandemic, and
Yeah.
then now in the pandemic people had, they didn't really have any outlet. So we don't know if people was just dealing with stress. We don't know if they were, just already sick before the pandemic, and when the pandemic came, they were, things started happening more, that they got more sick. And then it's like we're trying to question it, we're trying to like find out what happened, you know with these things that's going on. We're trying to now figure out, as far as like going into churches, some of them are not closed. I don't,
Yeah.
some of them are not open. And it's like, before, when we used to go to church, we had those crowds, we had
Yeah.
that thing that you just, you came together, you felt the word. Now it seems like, not that we force ourselves to go to church, because, like, for example, with me, I don't go to church all the time, but I try to go as much as possible
Yeah.
because, I know I have my relationship outside of the church with God, but I
Yeah.
still feel like I owe him some time inside of the house as
Yeah.
well too. But it's just like, for some reason, I feel like I kind of, now I'm connected more on the outside of the church with God, that sometimes it kind of makes me feel like all the time I don't have to go to the church to connect with God. So it's just
Yeah.
like, we just trying to all figure this.
Yeah.
We just trying to figure this thing out. So I just wanted to make sure I'm not alone. I know some other people are not alone. Like I said, I know you as a young pastor, and because you're still, you got that thing for God.
Yeah.
We all do, but we know you got that. You
I
know,
think I think two things. Like again, with the pandemic, with the exposure also came opportunity, right?
mm-hmm.
With spreading the good news, gospel of Jesus Christ, um, the internet gives us access to the entire world. It goes
Right.
places that physically we probably will never go. When we're asleep, people can go on and click a video of a sermon you recorded, and they can go and listen and be encouraged and their faith is strengthened, or their faith is challenged. Because for some people who may need to be doing something that's not doing something, they may hear that message that kind of gut punch them and push them into action. But the other thing is too that we learned during the pandemic, T, is that even when coming to church, like the crowds, I believe that crowds are coming back to the church, but I also believe that crowds are not just coming back to any church; they're coming back to the church that's meeting them where they are. So with that, the other thing is when you give somebody convenience, who gives up convenience?
Yeah.
So before, where churches weren't streaming, now they're streaming. It's like, hey, you know what? I can go to Lil Raheem's game and I can watch church from my phone.
But I don't want to feel bad about it because I do feel like some of us, we did get stuck in that convenient. Like, looking at it online,
Yeah,
just feeling like, oh, we could get the word from there. We could tap into Jason Moody and
yeah,
listen to you, Pastor Moody, and listen to you and feel like we got a great word. And,
yeah,
that might last us for the week,
yeah.
so.
So so let me just say this. I think coming together has its benefits, T. And at the end of the day, we were not created to be antisocial. We are social beings. It's
Okay.
in the most introverted person is social in some aspect. If you get the right topic or something that they're interested in, they will engage with other people. It was
Right.
never meant for us to be alone.
Right.
So when it comes to church attendance, I'm an advocate for attending in church,
Right.
or attending church service in person. But I'm also an advocate for connecting with a ministry online. Like like our ministry now, like we're working on online discipleship. Because even before the pandemic, we were doing Bible studies online. So during midweek, we wouldn't come together.
But see, it's great that you put it like that when you say, you know, people going online versus, because see, I'm looking at it that, okay, we're going on Facebook, we're going on social media.
Yeah.
So when you just said it like, you're going online, it sounds different. It makes you feel like, okay, you're not just going on Facebook or you just going, because I guess too, with those things being online and they are on some of those sites like Facebook and Instagram, and because it's a jungle on there.
Yeah.
You're not really separating it that it's an online church thing because
Yeah.
it's the website and the social media platform is a jungle.
Yeah.
So I know they probably do have like YouTube, different places that you can go and get the word and things like that. But when you kind of see it on Facebook, you kind of think in Facebook. But I'm glad you tapped in and said
it's
online.
social media. There are different platforms.
Right.
You can stream from your website. You can stream from YouTube. You can stream from Facebook. Many of the ministries that have an online presence, they use some type of platform that streams out to multiple platforms at one time.
Right.
So you'll see this person on Facebook, YouTube, and IG or other platforms. Some people use IG for their small clips, but you can go, then they'll say go to YouTube for the full sermon, or
Right.
go to Facebook,
Right.
or go to the website for the full
Right.
sermon. But I just think we definitely have to be creative with how we distribute the gospel. We have to meet the culture where they are,
Okay.
to bring them up, right?
Okay.
You don't skin a fish before you catch the fish. You got to
Right.
catch the fish, right? Where are the people? They're online.
Right.
They're on social media.
But I guess it just seems so different because growing up, we actually walked inside of a church.
Yeah.
We felt like we had to go inside of a church in order to get the word, in order to, so it was just different, before, where we felt like we had to be inside of a building in order to really receive the word.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing now too, also too, that pastors are online for people who aren't going inside,
Yeah.
the church and can't make it to church, that they still can catch like a service, online.
That
So
that's
it
that's one of the advantages. And the
okay,
other thing is, like, you just got to be intentional because the idea is to build community,
right,
right? You're only going to be like, because we're social beings, you're only going to be online but so much. Something that I'm doing inside the building, whether it's um, traditional worship service
right,
or whether it's panel discussions or
mm-hmm,
topics that we're discussing, is going to be inviting and enticing for you to come. It's like, you know what? I'm enjoying online. Let me go.
right,
Right? You see somebody, it's just like you watching somebody special on Netflix.
mm-hmm,
And then they coming in town. What do you say? Like, yo, I want to go see them in
right,
person
right,
because I've seen their Netflix special and it's pretty dope, right?
right,
Makes me laugh. I can
mm-hmm,
only imagine what it's like in person,
right.
right? And so that's one of the mindsets that we have to have when engaging, via social media, um, and how you're delivering your service. Man, make that thing so wonderful, so special, so inviting. It's like, man, if I felt the presence of God through the stream, imagine what it's like in person.
Mm,
And so, because it's only a matter of, like, if you can physically walk, if you can get yourself there, whether it's an Uber or however, partner with,
right,
like, hey, you know what, God, I know we normally go to brunch. Let's go to church before we go to brunch because I've been watching this. The sermons are killing.
right,
Like the praise and worship is killing. I love the
right,
music, or I love the sermons. I love the vibe that I get from streaming.
right.
And when you're intentional to build a community, you kind of get the best of both worlds, virtual and in person.
But do you feel like it's hard getting people to come back inside the church now because it's so you get the word so much online? Because
I don't.
sometimes when you look at the churches that they do stream live, it's not a lot of people there
Mhm.
like before. And I know people are still a little wary because
Depending
of
on who
the
you watch.
oh, okay.
Depending on who you watch.
Okay.
There are several. There are several in this Jersey, New York area. There are several throughout the country, of our persuasion,
Mhm.
that are doing amazing,
Wow.
killing it online. You will see the church packed out, and then you'll see several thousand viewers. You
Mm.
know, and I think again, it's about the ministry that's meeting the need, like where people's like, you know what, this person has relevant topics. This person's challenges me in my walk with God. This person has me feeling like, I can conquer anything that I face.
Mhm.
So you know what, I'm gonna tap in every week.
Mm.
And I love watching in my stories, like pastors that I follow,
Right.
when they have their members record them watching YouTube. Like, yo, pastor, you killing me today. Like,
Mhm.
I'm in my
Mhm.
living room taking notes, but they're
Mhm.
recalling, they recalling a sermon, to the pastor. Like, that's encouraging, and that brings kind of like a hype to the
Mhm.
to the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So it's happening, but I think some things are taking a little more effort though.
Mhm.
Like, you have to want it,
Yeah.
and I think
That's what it
with
is.
all of the distractions through social media,
That
I
too.
mean, name a day that there isn't an argument on social media.
Mhm.
Whether it's salt and grits, right?
Right.
That's been popping up every other month. Somebody be
Mhm.
like, yo, you salt or you do sugar in your grits.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Uh-huh.
Or the LeBron Michael Jordan conversation, be like, bro, y'all don't get tired of like going back and forth, or the most recent
Mhm.
presidential election, Kamala Harris, VP Kamala Harris versus former President Trump.
Right.
Like, it's always some type of, yo, we come from Patterson,
Right.
so
It's always some distraction.
always,
Always.
so I think we kind of got to be intentional, and this goes back to setting the temperature. We got to go back to being intentional about how we live our lives,
Mhm.
even with how much time we spend online.
Yeah. That definitely being intentional. Definitely.
So I think
That's what it is.
I think when you do that, that's another way you kind of set the temperature for your life. Like, you know
Okay.
what, I'm gonna monitor my social media interaction because man, it's kind of deep because we use social media for different reasons,
Right.
and we don't see like some of the negative impacts. We don't see it, but we feel it, or we
Yeah.
experience like the anxiety.
Mhm. And that's what I want to talk about next.
It's information overload.
Yeah.
It's too much content. The reason why some people can't sleep at night, too many they've been exposed to too much.
Right.
They've been scrolling all day, tapping on advertisements, tapping on, Amazon ads,
Right.
tapping on, wherever they shop.
Right.
The latest celebrity gossip. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like they're tapping on so much. It's on
And it's
overload.
sad because I feel like now they make it seem like everything you're trying to get into, everything you're trying to get, everything you're trying to do, everything you're trying to see, it's like, oh, you have to go on a website to see it. So that's why it is very distracting. It is
Yeah,
very mind blowing. It is very tiring because you feel like most of the things that you trying to go get is there on that site.
yeah,
That's why we, like you said, we have to try to get back to being very intentional about just being, also not being distracted with some of those things, because it does cause anxiety. And that's what I wanted to talk about too with you, because I know you had mentioned something about thoughts and anxiety.
yeah. With that intentionality, man, our minds are unbelievable. I mean, the things that we can imagine, the things that we can create mentally, it's amazing. That's a God characteristic, that we can think of just these grandiose ideas and thoughts.
But it's
And
overwhelming.
and I was about to say, here's the other part of it. Just as we can think of these grandiose thoughts, dreaming, we can also go to the other extreme and be very dark
Right.
in our thoughts. So T, everyone deals with anxiety in some way, shape, or form. Everyone deals with fear in one way, shape, or form. We were just talking about social media consumption, and being intentional, and I think that we have to consider it. Or if we create another analogy, it's like eating. You say you're dieting, you're refraining from certain things. When we talk about dieting now, I think, or eating, we got to think different dimensions, right? And the information you consume is just as critical as the food that you actually eat for your bodies. Information you consume, and your mind has to filter this information,
Right.
is just as critical as the food that you put into your mouth. Right? One scripture says, it's not what goes in you that defiles you, it's what comes out of you that defiles you. But what comes out of you is only what you put in you. If you eat chicken, you're not going to vomit steak. You're not going to vomit, oranges,
Right.
apples. You know what I mean? So we have to also watch our consumption, because they influence our thoughts. Case in point, ever fall asleep watching TV, and it seems like you're dreaming
Right.
what's actually on the TV. It's like it's being played out. Your subconscious and those things come into play. There's a lot that happens in the thought life. And for many people, the greatest warfare they will ever have in their life is spiritual, and it's in the mind. And so we have to be intentional with. I'll say this way. Some people talk about controlling your thoughts. I don't know if you can control your thoughts. It's about managing, or how you deal with the thoughts that you think.
Okay.
Because sometimes you're like, dang, what made me think of that?
Right.
Right? You
Right.
you couldn't control it. It just
Right.
it just happened.
And
right?
sometimes those thoughts bring you anxiety.
And so this is what I'm saying. So now
Right.
you have to ask the question: what do I do with the thought that I just thought? Right? Like, I thought this. It came to my mind. Now what do I do with it? Is it beneficial? Is it helping me? Like, if I stay here and keep focusing on this one thing, how is it helping my life? How is it helping this moment? Or is it distracting me in this moment? What do I do with my thoughts? So it's about how you deal, or how you manage with what comes to your mind.
Now, what would be something you would tell me that if some crazy thought came to your mind that caused you to have some kind of anxiety, how do you take control of that? What would be something?
So first of course is scripture,
Okay.
because I need something to combat that thought. If it's something like crazy, because you got to understand, like, sometimes thoughts happen because people experience things, right? And because you've experienced things, it now causes you to think a certain way.
Right.
You know, so if you're not in therapy, again, this will kind of help you to kind of start the healing process, or at least working through the situation. And again, is okay. This thought comes to my mind because I experienced this, right? If the thought is tied to something, right? And then for me, I have to ask. I go back to asking these questions to help me manage it, because if I don't, then it messes with my ability to make sound decisions.
Right.
Because I have these recurring thoughts that I'm trying to suppress, because that's what most people do. Like, oh, I'm gonna act like it didn't happen. I'm gonna just like, nah. Like, you gotta, when you're trying to come to a place of solitude and quietness,
Right.
sometimes you gotta let these thoughts play out until you come to that place of solitude. Because suppressing isn't going to do anything but bury until you just can't bury it anymore,
Right.
and it just starts leaking out. So when that happens, like, you really at a place where you're still gonna have to just let it flow
Right.
out until you come to a place where it's just like slows down.
Right.
Slow.
And it starts to
Got to
leave.
slow. It's got to get it out, and it has to slow down. Because if you don't, it will drive you crazy.
Yes.
And we don't do well with understanding how thoughts work in our life.
Yeah, and that's a lot of stuff that has been going on too. I think a lot of people we're just experience a lot of thoughts with anxiety because of things that we have experienced that brings those kind of thoughts that make us think deeper, and make us afraid and make us fearful of just like what's next.
Yeah.
And I believe too, like you said, sometimes we're just looking at so much stuff during the day, all day, and seeing different things. And it does get to that point that when you think you're sleeping, you're actually just daydreaming. So it's because and I've even hear people saying how restless they are at night. How
Yeah.
people don't get good sleep at night, and of course the first thing we do sometimes when we're not getting sleep at night, we go right back to that phone,
Start strong.
start putting other stuff in our minds, start seeing other things. Now we dreaming about the cake we seen somebody baking on TikTok. All types of just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then the thing too with the internet, they put out so many different things up there that it's just
They watch your
like,
behavior.
yeah.
They watch
But people
your
are actually
behavior.
but the thing is, people are actually getting paid for this behavior and just some of the things that
And you
they're
have
putting
to
up.
you know what's crazy, because I mean, that's the thing, like, people have learned how to monetize from this.
Right.
Um but we have to ask ourselves, sometimes we have to stop and pause and ask ourselves, why are we doing certain things? Because if it's the chase for the money, you have to be careful, because what happens when the algorithms change,
Right.
and or something happens in your life that causes you to lose followers, um, you're not getting the responses that you normally get. You're not getting the sponsorships that you normally get. You're not getting the collaborations that you normally get. Like, that's another area that, if you're going to monetize it, you got to be intentional to, watch this, learn how to be effective with it, and it not consume you.
Right.
Because when it consumes you, man, you start to just like start living for it.
Yeah.
And that's
Then you
when
get
it's
lost.
dangerous. That's when it's dangerous. So I mean, the monetizing piece, that can be straight strategy and things of that nature, because if you're not careful, you feel like, oh, I gotta be on this all the time, or I always gotta be on, and that's just not life.
Yeah.
We are not always on.
Right.
We
Right.
we are not always.
Right.
I'm telling you, I try to be, honest with myself, even as a pastor, but as Jason,
Right.
try to be on my, I'm not always on. I don't always feel like it.
Right. Right.
I'm not always on. And so I gotta definitely ask, like, when do we, as a community, just sit with ourselves? When do we slow down to think a little? Some people don't want to slow down,
Yeah.
because then they're forced to deal with themselves.
And that's the thing too. But I want to ask you, I want to get into, I don't know if this is going to be a touchy topic, but I feel like, some people need to know how to deal with death. Like, I know you lost your mom this year,
Hmm.
and you just look so strong, you know. I know. I know that's the thing. And, you still make a way to give us the word and keep the positivity going on and, keep other people hopes and spirits up. But
Yeah.
how are you doing?
Um. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give an emotion to that.
Okay.
I'm not just gonna say okay, and I'm not gonna say good.
Okay.
Um. I am gonna say I do recognize that I'm in a time of mourning.
Okay.
But I'm also still processing.
Mhm.
I have days where things are going well, and then I have
Mhm.
days where I have to stop, take
Okay.
a moment,
Okay.
have that moment, allow
Okay.
myself to have that moment,
Okay.
give myself grace to have that moment
Okay.
because um, I lost my dad. I didn't give
Of
myself.
course I don't want to cry.
Come on, T.
I know. I know. I know I'm such a crybaby. Go ahead.
When I lost my dad, I was in the pulpit like the next day
Mhm.
preaching,
Okay.
trying to lead a group of people. And 6 months later, I found myself in therapy because I just didn't allow myself to deal with it. Just kept moving because I felt like this is what I needed to do to get over the emotions that I felt for losing my dad. People
Mhm.
say, like you just mentioned, Jay, you was strong. When I
Mhm.
lost my dad, I
Mhm.
wasn't strong, man. I was ignorant. I was
Mm.
prideful. And, most people don't know, but like, I kind of had to fall back from pastoring for a minute to kind of just get myself, my life, and my family, together because
Now, did you feel like you was losing faith? Did
nah,
you?
never felt like
No.
I was losing faith. It was just I wasn't dealing with the loss.
Okay.
So it was kind of like the suppression that I was
Right.
talking about.
Right.
Like the more you suppress something, like
Right.
it just builds up
Yeah.
and then it starts leaking.
Mhm.
It starts leaking. It starts affecting your life in different ways.
Mhm.
You start making poor decisions. You become absent-minded, like because you don't realize that the depression is coming out in other ways or in other areas of your life.
Mhm.
So after that happened, um, I had another significant death probably a year and a half later after my dad, or almost 2 years later after my dad,
Mhm.
and that time taught me to take the time.
Mhm.
And what I did then, um, I had I had a mentor. I had some colleagues in ministry that I'm accountable to. I called them immediately, like, "Yo, here's what I'm dealing with, um, and I'm struggling." And it was never struggling with faith. I just was struggling emotionally,
Right.
struggling with the situation that how everything happened,
Mhm.
and I wasn't questioning God. Although that's not a problem if you do. For those
Mhm.
that do, that's part of the process. It just how do I deal with losing people who were pillars in my life?
Mm. Mhm.
And so even now, like as I'm dealing and coping with my mom, my brothers, um, we talk every day. Um, we kind of tease each other. How many breakdowns did you have today? Did you break
Mhm.
down? How you been managing? How you been dealing? Her birthday recently passed, and we were intentional to talk to each other. My wife has been a rock.
Mm.
My wife
Mhm.
has been a rock, and the one thing I promised her and I promised my family was that I wouldn't handle my mom's death the way I handled my dad's death,
Okay.
because there was a point where I was very detached.
Mm.
I was very detached and transactional.
Now I know also too with your parents, your mom and your dad, because they were faithful servers to God,
Yeah.
did that help at least somewhat, with your emotions?
In what way?
Like as far as like, cuz I know we know life isn't promised to
Yeah.
us, and I just feel like your parents, cuz I know them from Bible way. I know
Yeah.
your mom, she was like my godmom.
Yeah.
You know, just seeing their history of life, of just having that great relationship with God.
So I'll say this: they definitely the legacy of faith and leaning on God has been paramount for me.
Right.
And the one thing that I've learned is, it's okay to cry.
Mhm.
It's okay to take a break. It's okay to mourn. Um, because I know, like, at the black church funerals in church, we shout and we dance, and some people think like that's how you get through it, and it's like, nah. So here's the thing: prayer that I've learned from Dr. Anita Phillips, amazing author, um, and licensed clinician. Um, she made this statement. She was like, prayer is for your soul. Therapy is for strategy in terms of how to deal with the mourning, with the loss, with the change of life.
Mm. Mhm.
Because when it comes to mourning or grieving, we always talk about grieving the dead,
Mhm.
but we rarely talk about grieving the living,
Mm.
which means a change of situation.
Right.
Everybody that we lost ain't in the grave.
Mhm.
They're not in our lives anymore.
Mhm.
How do we deal with that? But actually, this Sunday coming at church, we're calling it group therapy. I have someone coming in as the holidays approach. This is one of the seasons where suicide rises,
Mhm.
depression rises, and then people grieve a lot during this season between Thanksgiving
Right.
and New Year's.
Right.
So this Sunday, we're gonna be dealing with it. She comes in, Reverend Kathy Risher. She's amazing. She helps us to cope. She helps us to deal. She challenges us. She don't even use words like lost. She
Mhm.
says die or dead. It's
Mhm.
like, so that's why, even when I made my announcement about my mom dying, people was like taken back. They was like, yo, you good? I'm explaining it the way I felt.
Mhm.
Today, something unfortunate happened.
Mhm.
My mother died.
Mhm.
People are used to, it is with a sorrowful heart
Uh-huh.
that we make this announcement on the
Mhm.
passing. No, my mother died
Mhm.
this morning,
Right.
right after a text conversation
Mhm.
that we were in the middle of and had not finished.
Mm.
So it's challenged me to just confront like where I am,
Right.
more than anything. But I don't deny what happened. I'm not in denial about it. Just learning how to live with it.
And see, that's why I wanted you here, because I know it's just so much that you could give to, our generation, and just, things, seeing how you deal with things, seeing how you still pushing forward the truth, you know, you know, just 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 you period, as
Yeah,
Pastor Moody, as Jason Moody,
yeah,
just giving us the outlet, and just, just I don't even know how to say it. It's just, I just feel like, I just needed you here for us. I just
I
feel like
got you.
I just needed you here for us, for, everything that we've been talking about, because I know that with you being here, and like some of the people that's following us, like they just needed this conversation, just how
Yeah,
to just, set the temperature in their life. And I
yeah,
knew that this information that you was going to bring to this platform was going to be emotionally, spiritually, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, that we just needed to hear.
yeah. I've definitely been living more intentional. Just because I want to also see certain results in my life, and
Mhm.
I have a group of brothers that I'm accountable to. Like, so outside of my wife, I have a group of brothers that I'm accountable to.
Okay.
Um, roles change with them,
Mhm.
meaning I may be the emotional support today.
Okay.
Tomorrow, they may
They may
be
be. Okay.
the emotional support. They're
Okay.
just as spiritual. Um, they have a wealth of knowledge, walking by faith, love God, married.
Mhm.
Um, and that's been definitely, you know, a great help.
Mhm.
Everyone, I'm telling everybody out there now, like, we all need people in our lives that we can go to in our darkest and toughest moments, that will cast no judgment, that will allow us to have those moments, especially when we're dealing with loss, or we're dealing with experiences that alter our lives.
Right.
When you have someone in your life, you have people in your life to help you go through, because T, some things are unavoidable.
Mhm.
We got to live through it.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people, take a break,
Mhm.
just don't quit.
Yeah.
Cry through it,
Mhm.
but don't quit. You know, get those people in your life that you can talk to, and definitely have some sound spiritual people in your life.
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds good for somebody to co-sign you're crazy until you got to live with the results of those crazy actions. So you could talk it, but
Right.
have somebody that can kind of
Now, how do you find
bring you
those
back in,
people?
huh?
How do you find those people? For
Man,
people who don't have those people,
for
how do they find those
I
people?
think I think for people who don't have those people, finding those people, I think in your interactions, like, look for people who are interested in your well-being.
Hmm.
Tawana, how are you today?
Mhm.
I know you're funny.
Mhm.
I know you got your business. It's not transactional.
Right.
They care about you. Hey T, we was discussing this the other day, and I noticed this statement, and I just couldn't let it go.
Right.
What did you mean by this?
Mhm.
Who's listening? Like, who really listens to when you talk, and can discern not just what you're saying,
Right.
but also what you're not saying. Can
Mhm.
can look beyond that, right? And they look beyond, like, your outer appearance.
Mhm.
Those are people that you definitely want to keep around you. People who are spiritual, people who have wisdom,
Right.
people who have values. Um, they're just not, just out here throwing their life away.
Mhm.
Um, some people, you know, I mean, it's like, hey, we need to be a little mature about these situations, but it seems like, like, I mean, petty sounds good, right?
Right.
We laugh at people, petty people, but it just be like, hey, man, the timing of your pettiness is not the best
Right.
right now. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Is it's not helping the situation. So I think for people who are looking for those, just kind of comb through people who ask you certain questions that show that they care.
Mhm.
Like, it's really, hey, I don't want anything from you today. I just want to know, how are you doing? I don't want anything from, hey, you know what? I know you've been going through some things, and you always listen to me. You always make sure I'm good. I'm here to make sure you good. Let me come take you out.
Mm.
And they don't, even when you telling your stuff, they don't try to
Talk about their stuff.
talk about their
They
stuff,
want to
right?
listen.
Or one up you. Oh, girl, you went through that. Oh, well, I went through this too. Just people who will pause their life to make sure you're good.
Okay, and last but not least, because it is two more things I wanted to touch on, but we kind of pressed for time.
Okay.
I want to ask you about this. Every encounter with God and people is meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
so don't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? In closing.
Oh man, I think that's a part of, like, the intentionality thing. When you're aware of, your purpose, when you're aware of, where you're trying to go in life, or you know where you're trying to go in life, there is no encounter or experience that's wasted, right? There's a scripture that says, all things, all,
Mm-hmm.
complete, right, work together for good.
Mm-hmm.
All to, they all the good, that means the good, and even the things that we call bad. There is no experience that you've gone through that you can't learn from, that will
Mm-hmm.
add some type of wisdom to your life, add some depth to your life, add value to your life. There's no experience waste. Even a bad boss
Mm-hmm.
will show you the type of boss you don't want to be.
Right.
You know, an experience with, an ex, an experience with, and that ex is an ex friend, an ex job,
Mm-hmm.
an ex spouse, like just ex.
Right.
There are these experiences that shape our future based on how we handle them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at it again with the right, going back to the beginning, with the right attitude and the right
Right.
mindset, it actually helps you, and it what can potentially what can potentially influence you winning versus you failing or you
Mm-hmm.
losing, or as John Maxwell would put it, failing forward, right? You have this experience, it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out, but guess what, you learned something that you
Right.
didn't know
Right.
had you not tried it.
Right. Because I feel like everything you do in life, if you don't learn from it, you really didn't get anything from what you did. So you should always be able to say, like you said, in the good and the bad, something you learned from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
You
I,
mhm.
as long as we're living, we should always be learning. As long as we're
Absolutely.
living, no matter the age, we should always be learning. I mean, even now, you know the seniors, they're learning about technology. Like
Right.
it's always something
Right.
to learn. And I think one thing I learned from my dad, real quick, my dad's story is, when I was born, my dad didn't have a high school degree
Mm-hmm.
or a high school diploma.
Mm-hmm.
My dad goes back to school at 50,
Mm-hmm.
graduates at 51, enrolls in William Patterson for the next 18 years
Mm.
until he gets his bachelor's at 69.
Nice.
Got his master's at 72.
Mm-hmm.
Always learning.
Yeah.
To the day my dad closed his eyes, the last time he was able, like, he was still reading.
Mm.
He was still reading. Like, we would exchange books
Mm-hmm.
because he was just hungry for knowledge. And I think that's one of the things that kept him alive. And so there's no experience that should be wasted. Every encounter is something that can be used to help us in life.
Mm. Great conversation today.
Yo, you were right. This goes by fast, and I'm used to sitting in your seat. So
I know. I know. And it was just so much that I wanted to talk about. I got so tongue tied because it's so deep, and I wanted to go a little further, but I'm like, I'm such a crybaby. I don't know
we might
how
have to do a
far I
part
could
two or
go.
something. I
I
don't know.
know we definitely have to get a part two, because I know there's so much more that we need to hear from you. And we just started with just setting the temperature of our life.
Yeah,
You know how you just talked about that at the beginning of our conversation, just the things that we need to do to allow ourselves to set the temperature, and how you just went into thoughts and anxiety and just things, how, we look at on social media, and where those things could take our mind. But then we talked about the positivity of online, how you put it online
yeah,
to look at worship and prayer, and just you know connecting with the people, to where as though that in some type of connection you get the people to come inside the church so they could get a little more.
yeah.
So you just you I need an offering basket for you right now, Jay. But I just felt like before this year ended, I just needed something spiritual here. I just
Yeah,
needed something spiritual here. I'm always, trying to advocate for my peoples too, as far as like, I know what we feeling. I know the things that we, afraid to talk about. I know some of the things that, we want to hear. We want to hear it from other people experience. We want to know that we're not alone,
yeah,
with some of the things that we're going through, some of the things that we're seeing, we're thinking. We just want to you know, we just want to know we're
yeah,
not alone. So
yeah,
I just felt like with you coming on here as a young pastor, as Pastor Moody, and also Jason Moody, I know you were going to be able to give it to us just like you did today, from both sides. So I
the glory.
appreciate it, and I thank you so much for coming here on today. I definitely got to get you back up here, because I feel like you teased me. You teased us. Thank you so much to our followers up on Facebook. I know they was asking a lot of questions and they're saying that they want a part two. Listen, you guys could inbox me, DM me. Um, give me some more questions to throw out here to
And
Pastor Moody, Jason Moody, because I wanted someone that was not that I have anything against the older generation,
yeah,
but I know right now, we kind of connected to the younger generation. We kind of feel like, y'all understand what we're going through. I love pastors that can relate to
yeah,
the times of now.
yeah.
You know, so I'm just feeling full right now. I'm just feeling
Thank you,
full,
Jesus.
and I'm just thankful that you were able to even come here and just get some things off of your chest.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
You,
honored to be here. Thanks for thinking of me to bring me to this platform. Look, let's do a part two, and I
yeah,
might even have an idea for it. Like,
yeah.
let's get ready for 2025. 2024, we'll finish strong, but let's get ready for 2025. I think it's something special for those who will be intentional about setting the temperature and for their life. I think there's something. It's going to take some work, but it's definitely achievable.
Let's do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Shady Talk Wednesday on a Tuesday. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And thank you so much, Pastor Moody, for being here in the chair and going to come on this couch and get a nice picture with your sister.
Sure, let's do it.
Thank you so much. Good night, guys.